All right, guys, this is the second to last video for this class. And what we're going to start talking about in these next two chapters, these two videos, is going to be a lot more of the stuff about the facility design. So these next two chapters are going to be what help you uh, create the facility that is the other portion of the project or the other project for this class. Um, with that in mind, make sure that you understand that just because you did something for your programming, if you chose a certain athlete or whatever it might be, your facility does not have to mimic that. They're two separate things. The program is one thing, the facility is something completely different. So if you have another idea for your facility that you think would be fun, by all means do that, okay? That's going to help this project be easier is if you just make it fun. So make it something that you want. Remember, you don't really have a budget. You just need to make sure that you hit the high points that I'm asking about. And a lot of the high points that you'll notice and start to understand what I'm talking about and what you need will come in these next two chapters. So we're going to start off with the facility design, layout, and organization. We're going to talk about the different aspects, including the 4 phases. So it's not just as simple as, oh, let me go over here and throw some equipment into a room, okay? Identify the aspects of modification of an existing facility, along with differences between design of a new facility and modification or renovations. Explain how to assess an athletic program's needs, so that way you design a facility that meets those needs, and explain how to design specific facility features, including where supervision location should be, how we should be able to access the facility, ceiling height, flooring, environmental factors, electrical service, and mirrors. A lot of this stuff, like I said, it's not just throw equipment in. There's a lot of regulations and a lot of different codes, so to speak, that you need to have to best fit gyms and to make sure that safety is included at the top of your list. Now, also, when we're going through these chapters, again, I'm going to preface this with, this book is from the NSCA, and the NSCA is going to deal a lot more with NCAA coaches, stuff like that. So a lot of what they're talking about may come off as, oh, well, that's a college facility or a big program like that. Yeah, that is true, but we'll talk a little bit about, smaller scale. And for the most part, everything is pretty translatable over even into a privately owned gym, okay? So don't get lost in the fact that it might talk about an athletic program, okay? We're also going to explain how to arrange equipment and explain the maintenance and cleaning needs. I know that sounds super boring, and when I get to that part of the chapter, I'm probably going to gloss over it pretty quick, but there are some high points in there that you need to know. So let's talk about the general aspects of new facility design. You need to form a committee of professionals, meaning, it's not just you, it's your investors, right? It's your architect, it's everything that you need. And you can't just go get just any architect or any facility designer. You want to try to get somebody that has some idea or has some background with working with strength conditioning facilities. Why? Because they know exactly, for the most part, when you start asking about things, how to go about that. If you get somebody that's never done anything like that, typically they have an idea set of what should work, but for what you need as a gym, that might not translate, okay? You need to have whoever's a part of your stuff. It is what it is. Are you just a gym that's going to have personal trainers that come through? Are you a facility that's going to house other types of things? Maybe you're an all-in-one type of place where, if you are talking about an athletics program, what about a training room? What about a sports medicine, a chiropractor? If you're designing a rehab facility, who all is going to be housed in there? Because space is going to be needed to have an understanding of what takes up space, okay? So let's just look a little bit about the phases and objectives. So our pre-design phase, you're going to want to do a needs analysis. And when we do a needs analysis, it can be whatever it is. If you are a part of a program that's building up a new facility, what are you needing, right? What did your old facility not have that your new one needs? And if you're talking about in the world of athletics, a lot of it is a lot of bells and whistles to attract young recruits. But if you are doing it as a personal, or not even a personal, but a privately owned gym, you need to do a needs analysis. For instance, if you go and you're living in a city, let's just take Corpus, for instance, and let's say there's 10 CrossFit gyms within a 10-mile radius of Corpus. Okay, is it going to be a need for the community to have another CrossFit gym? Likelihood not. Okay, or what is it that also goes into your feasibility study? Okay, a little bit of that. So what is the area that you're trying to get in? What are the needs? You got in that with the needs analysis and feasibility study, they kind of go hand in hand a little bit. Meaning you need to figure out what the community needs, right? Because if whatever the community needs, it's going to be a hot topic. And if it's a hot topic, typically that means that your membership or your revenue, your profit should go up. But also you need to understand your feasibility. Let's move over 40 miles to the west, and let's say we're putting it in Kingsville. Okay. If I have memberships for $150 a month, am I going to be very lucrative? Am I going to be very popular in Kingsville, Texas? No. $150 a month in Corpus, you're stretching it, but we can get there. San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, Austin, probably no problem at all. Probably even on the cheaper end, you know, depending upon what you're offering and what it is, right? So you need to understand where you're putting it. And I don't care on the project where you put it. I don't care if you're a group of 5 people that are currently living in, you know, South Texas decide, hey, we're going to put our gym in Chicago. Whatever, okay? I don't care where it is. Just make sure that when you're doing things, that you're keeping where your location is in mind. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, you know, when you're talking about your feasibilities, like what are we going to need to offer? What's the need? Maybe you're in a community that has a lot of young professionals with families, right? If you're a young professional, you know, depending upon your schedule, it's either working out super early in the morning. So a need would need to be that we need to be open early, or maybe it's you know, we work out at night. Well, if we work out at night, maybe we need a kids area, you know, for childcare during workout services. That type of stuff needs to be in place, right? You can't, it's harder to add that on once your building is finalized, okay? And you also need to see what you need to do. Is your need analysis one where your current need, is it a brand new, never been used building? Or is it, hey, let's go find us a location and we can renovate it to that aspect? And that's going to help you hire your architect. Is it somebody that specializes in new construction, or is it somebody that specializes or has more experience with renovations? Okay. That also goes into your master plan. Your master plan is not only what you're wanting to do right now, but where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay. If you are somebody that is building starting up a new facility, it might be that you go for that smaller venue right now to, you know, we're going to renovate, but what are you looking at for your location? Is it somewhere that, you know, we have the ability, if we start to grow the way we want, in 5 years, we're going to knock down that wall and purchase that space next to us and expand the gym? Is it, if you built a brand new facility, is it something where you're looking at in 5 years, we're going to add this to the facility? In 10 years, how are we going to add? Because once again, if you're sitting there and you're putting something into a previously, you know, created spot, so you're doing renovations, think about it that way. If I'm wanting to grow, either I need to grow to an extent to where putting up and building a new building is not going to be that big of a deal. I mean, it's obviously going to be a big cost, but is it going to be a big problem for me financially? Or I think we have an idea that is going to take, take off. So therefore, let's just go ahead and build a new building now and we can go from there. Okay. It's easier to add on to a spot that you own than it is to try to possibly buy the place next to you or whatever it might be. So keep that in mind. Okay. Then you go into that design phase. You have to you finalize that committee. Who's your architect? Who's this? Who's that? What are they doing? Create a blueprint. It's not simply, here, I want to do this, let's go. Because what might happen is you may have an idea in your head. And this is why it's important to utilize people that have that experience with strength conditioning places, is that you may have an idea of what you want. Okay. And I'm not saying that the architects are never going to listen to you, but what might happen is they may see it and say, look, I understand this is what you want, but in the terms of how we need to put things together, that's not going to work. Let's shift it this way. And what they're going to do is that if they have that experience, they're going to try to keep it as close to what you want as possible, and they understand the ideas behind a strength conditioning facility. Okay, so that way everything kind of comes out to be more beneficial than it is a hassle in the long run. Then we hit that construction phase. You need to follow the master plan as much as possible, okay? And then we're going to check on the construction progress. Here's where you kind of need to be a little bit of a, you can't sit back on your heels on this one, because here's the deal. If you get quoted for renovation or new building, whatever it might be, let's say it's 6 months. They say it's 6 months from the time they break ground to when you're going to open your doors. And you're checking in, and let's say you get to month 3. Okay. In the original timeline, you have 3 months left. And they say, sorry, it's going to take us another 5 months. You need to understand where you're at in your progress, because you need to be on top of that, because that's money coming out of your pocket. So therefore something else needs to be happening as well. You need to be compensated some way, somehow. Now, if it's things that you were out of, everybody's control, we have a different concepts. Okay. But just making sure that you check construction progress, so that way you're not blindsided by things and you can kind of head things off at the beginning. And then you need to arrange your equipment. This is when, once we get everything done and we can start bringing in equipment, how are you going to want to arrange it? It needs to be in a specific way that allows for optimal gym flow for patrons and just overall needs. Okay. Once you have all that, then we get in that pre-operation phase. That's where we're going to start hiring staff, assigning the duties, create what your cleaning schedule is going to be, and create your plan for operation. So kind of went through a lot of this, but we'll hit the highlights in case I missed something. I've talked about all that. You need to form your master plan. So what's your grand idea? Think of the master plan as what we want to do now, what we've planned and what we want to look like in 5 years, and what we want to look like in 10 years. Okay. That'll help you decide what needs to be important now and how you go about growing in the future. The design phase, your committee's ideas need to come together. And again, those committees could be just who's the head people in the gym? Is it just you? You're the owner. You're the sole person. Okay, that's fine. Maybe you have some investors that don't have anything to do with it. They're just the money behind it. Okay. But if you have multiple people that are going in on this and they all have different ideas, and then you have other top ranking people, like I said, if you have a facility that offers sports medicine aspects or training, athletic training, you need to have those individuals that are going to be heading up those pieces in these meetings. That way they understand and they give you their needs for what they need to be successful in that spot. Okay. Plan the flow. And again, that's going to come around when you are, if you get the proper type of architect and designer, flow will be the number one thing. How do you want it to be? Do you want everybody that's banging weights to be right when you open the door, and then the treadmills are way in the back? You want everybody to walk through in their normal daily attire all the way through the gym to get to the locker rooms that are at the very back, or do you want those to be up front? All that is gym flow, okay? The construction phase, it's a period of time. Make sure that you help keep it on track. And one of those things can be that don't be the person that tries to make all the tiny changes. Make decisions quick when you need to, and make sure that you are on top of what the process is. So, because again, if they start delaying, that's money out of your pocket, okay? So something's going to have to go down, and typically it may be lawsuit related. One of the big things within the next 2 chapters is the big overarching thing is don't get sued. Just don't do it. That pre-operation phase, you're finishing the interior decor. I know that sounds like, are you serious? But that also includes what type of flooring are you doing? That's a big thing, okay? Mirrors, where are they at? What do they look like? Do you have any type of artwork? I mean, it could be, whatever it might be. I've been in gyms where they have murals drawn and painted on the walls. Guess what? Once equipment and everything's in there, it's going to be hard to get paint and all that in there. So what are you doing? Are you choosing certain colors for things? Right? All that kind of goes in, and it sounds like piddly little things now, but trust me, a lot of those tiny things are what bring people in and keep people. You're going to hire your staff, or what does your staff look like? Are there a lot of part-timers? Are they just personal? What is it? Okay, strength conditioning specialists. Planning for staff development, meaning you're going to need to bring all those individuals in. You need to make sure that they have an understanding of what the rules and regulations of the gym are, everything else, dress code, stuff like that. Planning so that opening the facility is easy, meaning that you want to be as prepared as possible so that when you do open, any problems that may arise are all minimal problems, okay? If it's something to do with computers or, something like that, those are things that sometimes you can't control. And most of the time, members or potential members are going to understand that. But if it's something where your staff and everybody looks incompetent, that's a bigger problem. Planning for the organization of administrative and clerical duties. Again, we're going to start seeing what's our plan of action. If something happens, who's in charge, who do they call, and what's the order of operations there? So existing strength conditioning facilities, you should assess existing equipment. So if you're in a situation where you are purchasing a gym, let's for instance say Planet Fitness goes bankrupt in Corpus, and I'm an investor and I want to buy that gym and their equipment for one price. You need to make sure you assess it. You assess the equipment and make sure that the equipment's going to, be usable based on the needs of all the athletes and the teams who use the facility. Because you don't want to purchase things and then have to throw them out, essentially. You want to know what you're buying. You may say, I want the building, everything, and then this list of equipment that you have. Everything else can go. And then we'll see what you're going to do. Once again, your first steps when you're doing an existing facility, form a committee. Who's going to be in charge? Who's going to be a part of the facility? What's the feasibility? What are we doing, right? Are prices good for what we do? Is that what's happening? Is this place really needed here? What are our needs? So we may have all this, but we still may need brand new benches. We may need brand new plates, whatever it might be. You may have the bones to things, but you may need to add some more of that fluff, okay? Create operational plans, remodel and upgrade if you need to, finalize your new design and decorations. That's one big thing. It's small. If I were to purchase it and I kept everything purple, everybody's going to think it's still Planet Fitness. You need to, if you want to, change the colors up. Again, you're going to arrange the equipment. Maybe the other people didn't have it arranged the way you want it. Create employee duties and schedule, hire and keep your staff, okay? how do we assess the athletic program needs, or how do we assess what you need for your facility? How many people are you going to be allowing to use the facility at a time? So if you're somebody that's creating a gym and you're going to offer training services, maybe to local high schools, okay, um, and that's a very big possibility. There's a lot of places that do that. How many athletes are going to come in? Uh, if you're in the fall, maybe football's using the gym, their own stuff at the high school, but maybe now you need volleyball and whatever other fall sport may be coming in. When are they coming in? Okay. And what are they going to need to be able to perform at their best? What are the training goals? Okay. What are we wanting to do? What are the demographics of the athletes? Males versus females? Are they, what do we, if you're looking at this in terms of what your gym needs, what are the demographics? Are we in a bunch of working class type of areas? If that's the case, that might shift our membership dues. If we're in a higher affluent area, you might be able to spike it up a little bit, or if you're in an affluent area that has a little bit more socioeconomic status, you may need to get more brand new equipment and some of the state-of-the-art stuff just to keep their interest, right? What will the training experience of the athletes be? Is it going to be hardcore? Is it going to be one-on-one coach led like CrossFit is? Or is it going to be that we have the equipment, you come in, do your thing, right? What kind of place are you looking to have? Is it going to be one that is like a old school gym that allows you to grunt? Is it allowing you to throw weights around? Or is it like a Planet Fitness where it's going to be pretty mellow, don't draw a lot of attention, stuff like that? How will the athletes be scheduled? So once again, you need to make sure if you're bringing in teams, that's a lot of people in at once. So how are we doing that? Baseball in the morning, softball in the afternoons, whatever it might be. What equipment needs to be repaired or modified? Like I said, sometimes you need to, you already have the equipment in some cases. So what is that we're keeping? Does it need new upholstery? I don't know. Does the hydraulics or the railing or the tracks that the leg press goes on, do we need to call the company and have it repaired, right? Maybe it's sticking a little bit. You've got to assess everything. Location. Ideally be located on the ground floor. Basically what you're saying is that you can have multi-level facilities. We've all seen them. Ideally, if you have a multi-level facility, the main weights, machines, and stuff like that are going to be carrying a lot of the loads, they need to be on the ground floor. You don't want that second floor, third floor weakening on you and something happening, because now everything below you is in danger. Okay. Now, if you want to start putting a track upstairs, you want to put cardio equipment or dance studio rooms that are going to house kind of like group fitness classes, that's okay, because none of those use a lot of weight. It's the big equipment needs to stay on the ground floor as much as possible. Supervision location. So where's your place in the gym where somebody is going to be able to work maybe the front desk? It could be your front desk. Where do they need to be located to where they can see everything around them? Because here's the deal. They don't need to be standing there all day, but if you're a busy gym and they can't get away, you should have more than one person working, to be honest. But if you have a small gym, one person may be enough. Where do you put them to where they can see everything going on? That way, if something does happen, they are quick to the scene. And typically it needs to be in a central location with clear line of sight and mirrors that provide the opportunity to look out and see everyone. Okay, you don't want somebody, if it's early time in the gym, to fall out over in a corner and no one can see them and no one hears anything, right? So you want to make sure that everything can be seen. Access. The facility should be accessible to persons with disability. A lot of this stuff, again, if you get the architect, they're going to know all of that. And they should know all the different things about, especially on the outside, that it needs to be any change in height exceeding half an inch. There needs to be a ramp or a wheelchair lift. Ramp should run 12 inches for every 1 inch of rise. Steps should have a rough strip on the edge to prevent people from falling. Again, all these little things, but guess what? You forget to do something like that, guess what? You're getting sued. Ceiling height. Now, this may sound pretty ridiculous because you're like, well, what the heck does ceiling height matter? Here's the thing. If you're in a facility that's going to offer anything that's explosive, right? Jumping, explosive, Olympic lifting opportunities, right? Where we put a snatch, the barbell goes up and over the head, wall balls. Typically, those should be the only really things. But still, okay, you need to make sure that the height is 12 to 14 feet. That will give, clearance to allow people to perform these activities comfortably. And then if you're going to be offering things like wall ball, stuff like that, make sure you maybe put the ceilings a little higher just to be safe, okay? But your main thing is that you don't want normal ceilings where people are, because if you go with a normal ceiling, I think a normal ceiling is roughly 8-9 feet-ish. So now if I put a box that's 24 inches tall, okay, that's 2 feet. So I have 6 feet left. If I have a basketball player, they're not getting up there. Okay, so you've already knocked out a subset of a population or a possibility, or let's not even take it a basketball player. Let's just take somebody who's tall, right? Barring him being an athlete, think about Nick. He's kind of tall. He might not be able to fit in that anymore, right? So you got to make sure that you're giving enough space to where people can perform activities that you're offering to them. Flooring, the most common floor option is rubber flooring. That's going to be pretty easy cleanup. You take your mop of disinfectant kind of and you go across. Some people do antifungal carpet. Thing about the carpet is that every so many times a year, you need to move equipment and do a big cleaning. It's not just as simple as vacuuming. Once, if you start getting a lot of water and everything in there, it's nasty. Another option is indoor turf. Now, you can have multiple areas of flooring. That's not against the rules. Just think about this. If it's indoor turf, you want to make sure that people aren't doing things that could cause slipping and further injury. We're not doing Olympic lifting on turf, because you slip, the weights fall, hit you, you're done. Okay? Push sleds, stuff like that, that's okay. Stretching areas, running areas, that's fine. Keep in mind, though, one of the big things about indoor turf and turf areas is that if you don't clean it properly, it is a housing site for different bacteria, staph infection types aspects. Okay, so make sure that's when we start talking about cleaning schedules and cleaning procedures. If you're doing anything weightlifting platform wise, it needs to be made of wood, meaning that typically squat, deadlift areas need to be wood because they're sturdy, they're smooth, and it's going to help prevent slipping or shoes getting caught on rubber, stuff like that. So your flooring could be different based upon the area of the gym. Your facility's lighting should include artificial and natural light. You want to make sure that people see the sunlight some way, somehow. But you don't want to put all your equipment in front of this big, massive window where now it's going to be hot when I'm exercising, hotter than it needs to be. Let's say that. Or you don't want to put the bench press in front of the windows and, half the day it's just sitting on with the sunlight hitting it, because it'll do a couple things. One, the leather or the upholstery is going to get hot. Anybody ever sit in a hot car? Doesn't feel good. And over time, that type of exposure to the heat and everything, it'll start to break down that upholstery and you'll have to replace it at a lot sooner date. The light should be between 50 and 100 lumens, depending on the height of the ceiling, okay, and the amount of natural light that you're offering. You need to make sure that you maintain a comfortable training temperature, so 68 to 78 degrees, and a relative humidity not to really exceed 60%. Obviously, you can't help that. To some extent, it's going to shift a little bit with the relative humidity, and the temperature is going to shift, especially if you have a lot of windows, or if you're a facility that is a warehouse style gym where you have the big warehouse door that you open up, or if you're a warehouse style gym and you are in Corpus, relative humidity of 60%, probably going to get higher than that. If you're in Arizona, probably never going to reach that. A lot of that is to do a couple things. It's going to deter a lot of bacteria buildup, and the relative humidity aspect is going to make sure that we don't get any type of condensation type of changes on the equipment for a couple of reasons. One, we don't want it to wear down. Two, we don't want there to be a film, so to speak, of anything on the equipment when someone's trying to grip it and they lose grip, right? So we want to make sure that we mark for that as much as possible. Electrical service, you need it requires more outlets than most buildings. Why? How many treadmills do you have? They all run on power, okay? All the different lighting, anything that you have, you want to have the ability to have multiple outlets in a lot of places. Some of these outlets may require higher voltage or more powerful equipment. And depending upon where you're at, if you don't want certain things, they can go on pillars on walls, they can go in the floor. Certain places even have them kind of where they have it running across the ceiling up in the rafters. That is not a bad idea, but just remember that you still have wires moving somewhere, so you need to make sure that those are out of the way. Mirrors, they need to be at least 6 inches from any equipment and a minimum of 20 inches above the floor. Why? Typically, if they're 20 inches above the floor, if we do have a barbell that rolls, typically they're not going to be hit. Shouldn't be, okay? And also, think about where you see all mirrors in a gym. It's either over by the pin-weighted types of machines where, you just move the pin. Why? There's no worry about anything coming to hit it. They are typically over by possibly the squat racks. Why? Odds are you're going up and down. No weight should be going forward. They're not by bench presses. They're not by a lot of that stuff, or they're by dumbbells. But what does a dumbbell look, or the rack look like? It's slanted. So the top rack and the bottom rack are like this. So you're still 6 inches away. So inherently, you shouldn't touch anything. The mirror shouldn't be touched unless someone's being a jerk and just throwing weights around, okay? But those mirrors are very expensive. So you want to either be very conservative with how many you put around, or you want to make sure where you're putting them, they're going to maintain a safe spot. Other considerations, drinking fountains, you want them to be located away from the training area, mainly because if you have any leaks or if someone's getting any water, you don't want splashing around on your floor to either cause wet spots or a slipping hazard. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you have water fountains located within a good area to where people aren't having to go from one end of the gym all the way to the other just to get a drink of water. Okay, so kind of have multiple locations for those. Having a shower located helps maintain hygiene. It's not a necessity, but depending upon what you have or the ability, if you want to make sure that you have a shower. Helps prevent the spread of infections and disease. Well, I mean, here's the deal. It's if you're working out and you get sweaty and nasty stuff like that, typically most people just leave. Okay. Now, if you're offering things up where people can come in before work or whatever it might be, you may want to put a shower in, right? But just make sure that when you do, or if you do, cleaning of the showers is necessary. So let's talk about the equipment placement. Give me one second. Equipment should be grouped in sections such as stretching and warm-up areas. It's pretty common sense. Go to any gym and look at where it is. You have a lot of free weights together. You have a lot of machine weights together. Cardio equipment, warm-up, kettlebell and dumbbells are together, right? You want to keep those areas together. Now, the next thing is spacing them out to where they make sense. Go to any machine area. Typically, all the leg machines are going to be in one area. Upper body, back is going to be in one, chest, arms, shoulders, everything's together, because when people start grouping their workout, making it minimal movement is beneficial for a couple of reasons. One, they can get their stuff done in the order that they needed to. And two, it helps the flow of traffic. Okay. Free weights and racks should be organized along a wall. Basically, what you want to do is you want to make sure that free weights, for sure, are away from the big walk areas. Why? You don't want free weights falling on somebody that's walking by. And also, you want to make sure that you're putting in it and you have rules in place to where those weights stay close together, because you don't want people walking around with the weights. Just making sure that you have safety in mind, okay? Cardio machines need to be put together. Barbells and dumbbells should have a minimum of 36 inches of space between them to allow movement between racks. So in other words, if we properly organize everything and I center a barbell in a squat rack or a barbell rack, and before I get to the next one, I have to space my dumbbell rack out, and if I center a bar, between each end of that bar should be 36 inches. 3 feet is enough for you to be able to move, get your own weight off the rack, put the weight on, and do your work, okay? That's why it's important. We don't want people moving around with weights everywhere. So the racks themselves should have enough weight to go everywhere. Basically, it's just safety and function, guys, are top priorities. Traffic flow. It's going to be heavily influenced by your equipment placement. Most facilities are one big room. Walkways can be created and manipulated based on how you move your equipment. Or you could have a designated walk area. Whatever it is, you just need to make sure that you give everybody enough space. And then the traffic flow. Once again, traffic flow kind of comes in when we start talking about locker rooms and stuff like that. You know, and are you wanting everybody to be in a suit and tie if they come in from work with their big gym bag walking around while you're trying to do all your work? Well, they probably don't want to walk through it either. So make sure that everything is placed where flow is easiest on the patrons. Basically, for stretching and warm up, needs to be at least 49 square feet. So you can perform a dynamic warm up. So if you want something that's a little bit higher intensity, and it needs to be an area in a room big enough to where multiple people can use it at the same time. Okay. Circuit training areas, these should be placed at least 24 inches and preferably 36 inches apart in order to provide adequate walking space and some extra space for safety. Any designated walk areas in this area should be between 4 and 7 feet wide. That's to move freely between equipment. And if you have multiple people moving around, it allows for them to move through quickly and without bumping through each other. Okay. Free weights, they need to be lined up along a wall. Again, you just don't want them being walked around. 36 inches between each other and ends of racked bars. Kettlebells should be lined up under a dumbbell rack or in their own section. Once again, you may not want to put kettlebells near a mirror because what happens if it slips? Since most movements with the kettlebell are dynamic, make sure that area is large because you don't want weights that are swinging around to have the ability to hit somebody, or if someone lost control, that they're flying the weight towards somebody. Racks and platforms should have enough room between them so that someone can walk, but someone were to fall, people nearby would not be injured. Racks and platforms should have 3 to 4 feet of walk space between them. Again, that's a lot of space to be able to make sure that nobody is disrupting other people's work, and you have the ability to manipulate any of your weight without any issues. Bolt them to the floor. How many of you have seen the videos on YouTube where someone drops the barbell on the squat rack and it flips over on them? Bolt it to the floor. It's easier to fix a floor than it is to pay for medical bills. Cardio machines should be in their own section. Again, line them up in organization. Treadmills this way. Ellipticals are over here. Stair machines, bikes. Everything needs to be grouped together. You don't want to get it too choppy. You need 24 square feet per bike. Per bike. So that's 4 feet 4 feet wide by 6 feet long. That's 24 square feet. Each treadmill, 45 square feet. The benefits of treadmills is that you shouldn't be doing anything. You get on and off from the backside, right? So with treadmills, you can at least butt them up to where they're pretty close together. You shouldn't have that much. You can, squeeze the space together because everybody should be getting off behind them. Now, the big deal there is make sure you have enough room behind them and there's a walkway behind. That way people don't get hurt or hit other people when they get off. Bikes need to be a little spaced out. Why? Try getting on a bike if we're all touching handles. It's gonna be a difficult concept, right? Skiers and rowers, all this needs to be because people need to be able to move and get on and off the equipment. So let's look at a quick layout. If you're looking at a small gym, this would be something like a high school. Notice all the differences here. They have everything grouped together with what they have. All right. These little weight racks are important. Why? There should be enough weight to where this individual is on this bench press or this one. All they have to do is go there or there for weight. We don't want them going all the way over here. We don't want them coming over here. We want them to have enough weight in these weight racks to be able to house these 4 bench presses. Same thing with these weight racks over here. We want to make sure that we have enough weight to where people aren't having to maneuver weights across everywhere. Now, this is a smaller gym. Now, let's take a quick look at something for a university. Now, this one you could probably compare to a massive major facility that you could inherently build yourself. Look at the differences. Still, everything is grouped together, but now we've had to add more space for our different pieces of equipment. When you have I'm going to go back real quick. When you have a limited amount of equipment in a big enough space like this would technically be, your spacing, you can be a little bit more liberal as far as being how much more space you give in between things, as long as you hit those minimums, right? But look, when you start offering things to a lot of people and you have a lot of equipment, now we're really starting to get in where spacing is premier. Okay, it needs to be on the money. And then also look at these little things right here are weight racks. Look at the number of weight racks that are around. Why? Odds are people at a university or at a high level training facility are going to be lifting more than somebody that's at a junior high or a high school. So we need to have those abilities for them to do so and still maintain that we're not having them walk weights around, okay? Maintaining and cleaning your surfaces, just make sure that you have a checklist for cleaning the floors. Check the cracks, standing dirt and grime, any breaking, any bolts or screws that are up, glue's not coming up, that's sturdy, locked in place. Check for mold, mildew, and tears in carpet. Cleaning your walls, don't allow dirt to build up, replace the mirrors. I mean, all this is pretty self-explanatory as far as what you need to do, and keep a checklist because you need to know when was the last time. Because if, let's say, Saida cleaned them on Monday and now we're on Wednesday and I walk in and I'm the owner of the gym and I see that there's dirt buildup. Well, I know that it says on my sheet that Saida cleaned them on Monday. Who worked Tuesday? Xavier? Oh, he didn't clean them. See what I mean? So you have any issues and if you ever have anything that goes on where if someone were to get hurt or somebody does get something, maybe staff or whatever, and the health department gets involved, look, you've got a checklist of things that you've been doing. It's going to minimize the what comes down on you essentially. Ceiling, same thing. Just schedule frequent maintenance and cleaning. It helps ensure safe training, protects your investment, and maintains the facility's appearance. That's the big thing. All right, so that's kind of the arrangement and the buildup of the facility. The last chapter that we're going to talk about is going to talk about more of the procedures, more of the legal issues, and the overall operations. All right, so start using this video to help with your project. Outside of that, we got one more video left. Have a good one, guys.